So it looks like I'll be doing two stories on Libya in a row. That I don't think has ever happened. There really hasn't been much that happens in Libya really at all. It's just the same old clashes here and there between the two sides. The battle for Tripoli, as I said yesterday, has been going on for most of this year. But now all of a sudden, Haftar is making this one final push to try and break the stalemate. And in doing so, they have a pretty interesting strategy. Haftar now has told the Misrata militia, which is a militia from the city of Misrata, that hey, you guys need to get out of Sirte and Tripoli, which are the two cities he's trying to capture. Sirte is a port city, so obviously that's important if he wants to try and move in supplies from Benghazi, which I believe is his capital currently of his government. And Tripoli, of course, is the capital of Libya, so he very much wants to capture Tripoli. The Misrata militia is basically the main force that has been propping up the Government of National Accord, the GNA, which is now backed, of course, as I said yesterday, by President Erdogan of Turkey. And so rather than trying to deal with the GNA directly and to tell the GNA to stand down, Haftar is going over to try and break up their coalition. So he's gone to the folks from Misrata and he said, hey, do you really want to fight and protect Tripoli and Sirte? You should get out of there because we're going to attack your city if you don't. And we don't want to attack you. Our fight's not with you. You're in Misrata. We don't care about what goes on in Misrata. We just want to capture the capital so we can, be the legitimate rulers of this entire country. And we don't have a problem with you. But if you try and stand in our way, we're going to go after your city. And, and of course, if Haftar starts attacking Misrata, well, then the Misrata militia is going to go home to fight him anyway. And he'll be able to, be more easily take down Sirte and Tripoli. And so the Misrata folks are in a bad position here because, do they stand by their allies and watch their city get destroyed? Or, because I don't think they would do that. Once Haftar started attacking their city, I think they'd probably go home to try and defend it. And given, past performance, I would think that the future results of a LNA, the Libyan National Army attack on the city of Misrata would not necessarily be just to capture the city hall or something and to raise they have the same flag as the GNA, but to hoist Haftar up there and put his picture on the wall as the president or whatever. And I think that they would probably, bomb the place and create a lot of civilian casualties and probably kill family members of these guys fighting to protect the government in Tripoli. So, if these folks really are, a local militia that cares about their town and their people, well, I think this is kind of a no-brainer for them. If their core motivation is to protect their families and their town and their neighborhoods, well, then they have nothing to gain here. They only serve the GNA to the extent that it is a way of protecting their town. But if Haftar comes out and clearly says, hey, the way to protect your town is to abandon the GNA, and nothing will happen to them, well, that he'll guarantee their safety, then why would they stay and fight? And I'm sure most of them are pretty tired after months and months of fighting anyway, or at least, trying to... I don't know if there's been too many direct clashes on the ground or if it's mostly been airstrikes. But either way, the war's been going on for a long time, and these guys have been camped out in Tripoli for quite a long time, most of this year. So I think that this is an attractive offer that he's giving them. What I find most interesting, however, is the timetable. Haftar, I believe, made this ultimatum on Friday. And he gave them 3 days. So he said, basically, you've got this weekend, get out of Tripoli and Sirte, or else I'm going to come after your people in your town. And so why now all of a sudden? Why didn't Haftar do this earlier in the year? Why has he just been trying to, use brute force to break through the stalemate this whole time? I think that this is not at all unrelated to what I was talking about yesterday with Erdogan and his deal with the Government of National Accord. I think that Haftar sees the Turks, entering the conflict as a very unhappy proposition and something that could seriously impact his ability to consolidate the country. So it looks to me like Haftar is trying to front-run any possible Turkish intervention in Libya, because Erdogan has said that he intends to build a base in Libya, and that he's going to support the GNA's mission to retake the entire country. And even if that's not even sending troops, but maybe just sending over planes and giving them some air power, lending them some of their fighters to go and do some bombing runs on Haftar, that's a threat to him. And so with this deal between Turkey and Tripoli inked, I think that he wants to try and get this over with as soon as possible. So what better time than right now? Because there really is no time to waste. And so who knows? Perhaps the Turks agreeing to help fight with the GNA and to help try and further their cause was actually the final nail in their coffin, the thing that finally made Haftar get desperate enough and to try and do something a little more reckless to push for a final victory. Because I've thought for this whole year that if push came to shove, that Haftar would come out on top. And frankly, I don't know enough about the details of the battle on the ground in Tripoli to understand exactly why there's been such a long stalemate. Because, frankly, based on what we were seeing at the time when Haftar first attacked Tripoli, the way that these militias were operating, they looked like a bunch of buffoons. These were, about as close to, these were, typical untrained Islamist jihadis. They were just waving their gun around over their head. They were wearing flip-flops and walking around. There was one guy doing donuts in a tank, and I mean, it was just, it was comical. And yet, nevertheless, despite how buffoonish they seemed and how, ill-equipped they are, they have persevered, and they've actually been able to pull through and hold off all these months. And so I don't know if I necessarily underestimated them or if I've just overestimated Haftar and his folks. It'll be very interesting to see if this ultimatum goes anywhere and if anything does end up changing, because it would be quite interesting to see what happens when and if Haftar actually is able to retake Tripoli, and he becomes the only player in Libya anymore, and that if the GNA really is completely defeated. How will the so-called international community respond? The folks all of whom were familiar with Haftar, because Haftar, I haven't said this in a while, he was a CIA asset. He used to live in Northern Virginia, so he knows how to play ball. But for whatever reason, he has hadn't received any official backing. I mean, the U.S. has been talking to him behind the scenes, and they seem to be comfortable with him. Trump has said a couple of favorable words about Haftar, so I don't think that the U.S. would try and topple him if he ends up winning. I think that they might be quietly rooting for him, in fact. But the UN and the rest of these people who consider themselves high and mighty and defenders of democracy and all that, they seem to be much more committed to the GNA just because of how it's structured. So I'll try my best to stay on top of this story, and if you gained anything of value out of this video, I'd appreciate you clicking that like button and sharing this video. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe, because I do upload every day, and I'd hate to have you miss one. So I'll see you folks back here tomorrow.